I've had people say like you might want to downplay your faith a little bit, because it's not really a thing that's going to win you over.
But then it comes down to reality. What are the jobs you're being offered? And if the job specifically you're being offered,
I'd never been to a march. I hadn't quite invested in that, the idea of like what it would mean politically.
of God's best for me to realize like I had to stop trying to control the industry, controlling my life.
They say playing Jesus changes your life forever. But what if it also costs you everything? Jonathan Roumie, the beloved face behind The Chosen's portrayal of Christ, has moved hearts around the world. But behind the applause lies a painful reality few saw coming. Hollywood doesn't always reward faith. In fact, it sometimes shuts the door entirely. Roles stop coming. Industry whispers warned him to tone down the Jesus stuff. But what does Roumie do in all these?
Do what I think I needed to do, and check in with God, and that became the deciding factor. So yeah, you just discern, pray, surrender, and but also try, if you have the opportunity, try to find the arc where Jesus is with whatever characters that are flawed.
And surprised because that's kind of what I had heard about, and I just see how people um, react, and how you look at the majority of the work that is put out in the secular world, and um, you know faith isn't
Jonathan Roumie has never been shy about his faith, but not everyone in Hollywood sees that as a strength. As his portrayal of Jesus gains global recognition, some within the entertainment industry have subtly suggested that his outspoken Christianity could limit his future opportunities. In a culture where faith is often viewed as a private matter, or one best kept off set, Roumie's boldness can feel out of place.
I've had people say like you might want to downplay your faith a little bit, because it's not really a thing that's going to win you over, to people, and in casting films and TV shows. It's like people are more, I think in Hollywood especially, people are kind of nervous about talking about their faith in a business setting. I never was. I was just, I'm happy to talk about it, to anyone who wants to talk to me about it. But, getting that kind of advice was a little strange and disappointing, but
Some have even advised him to tone down his faith if he wants to be considered for other roles. But before we show you what Jonathan said next during this interview, let's quickly show you this next very intense moment and what happened in it.
Skian says, fellow actor here, how do you balance
Exactly.
taking jobs and staying true to your faith? I almost always feel the art culture is at odds with my faith.
You know, I feel like the culture is, in general, at odds with faith. But then it comes down to reality. What are the jobs you're being offered? And if the job specifically you're being offered,
For actors of faith, the line between opportunity and compromise can be painfully thin. Jonathan Roumie understands this tension better than most. As someone known around the world for his role in The Chosen, he's faced with questions not just about his craft, but about his convictions. And when aspiring actors ask how he stays true to his faith in such a challenging industry, his answer is thoughtful and honest.
because that's an effort, a feat in itself as an actor to get a job. Secondly, what about the job makes you uncomfortable, puts you at dis-ease, makes you uneasy? Uh, there's always an opportunity for. We have to remember as actors not to judge the characters we play. Now, there's a difference between not judging a character and realizing the character, like the way it's written and what the.
Roumie doesn't see the entertainment industry as inherently evil. but he acknowledges it often clashes with faith values. Not every role is offensive, but many projects do come with spiritual red flags, whether it's glorifying darkness, pushing explicit content, or simply presenting characters without any sense of redemption or truth. When those moments come, Roumie believes the key is discernment.
Creators of the project have in mind for you to do, if there's anything that you feel is compromising your spirituality, that's one thing. If you feel like there's, he's maybe a bad guy, well, I try to find the good. I try to find Christ in all of these characters, right? If they're somewhat three-dimensional, hopefully they're three-dimensional, finding Christ in those characters, as you would in any other human being, is what allows a character that maybe might behave distastefully in certain scenes to...
He encourages actors to ask real, soul-level questions. Is the role just playing a flawed character, or does it cross a line into something spiritually damaging? Is the discomfort coming from the complexity of the story, or is your spirit telling you something's off? And also, how does he stay grounded? Wait till we get to the most intense part yet.
There's always an opportunity for... We have to remember as actors not to judge the characters we play. Now, there's a difference between not judging a character and realizing the character, like the way it's written and what the creators of the project have in mind for you to do. If there's anything that you feel is compromising your spirituality, that's one thing. If you feel like there's, he's maybe a bad guy, well, I try to find the good. I try to find Christ in all.
Not mincing words, he admits there are shows he won't even audition for anymore, simply because the content feels so dark his spirit rejects it. It's not about judging others, it's about guarding your heart. And in an age where digital content lives forever, he believes every role you take matters. You have to be able to look back and say, I honored God with that choice, even if it cost you the job.
Might behave distastefully in certain scenes to at least give you something that you can work with and find a redemption for. And maybe it's just a lot of gratuitous violence or sex or whatever it is. And sometimes you look at those, and if those are the kinds of roles that are being offered to you, then you got to decide like whether or not that's good for you. Like I now no longer can even watch certain TV shows because they're so gratuitous. Like my spirit rejects them. So if I were to even audition for a certain show or one or two particular shows, that my spirit is almost
This surrender didn't come overnight. Roumie shares that his own journey was long and painful. Years of struggling to control his career led to burnout, discouragement, and confusion. It wasn't until he hit rock bottom and gave up trying to make it his way that everything changed. When he finally surrendered his plans to God, fully, without strings attached, doors began to open. That's when The Chosen came into his life, and everything shifted.
Watch it because it just seems like, all right, the agenda is really dark on this particular program or that particular show. If I were to even receive an audition, I probably wouldn't even audition for it because, at the end of the day, you have to live with the decisions you make. And now, digital is forever. You don't want to look back and be like, why did I do that? Did I do that just for a couple of bucks? And trust that God, if you're offering and surrendering your life and your will to God, He will provide for you no matter what. I am living proof of this. Like, my story is that I was at my lowest.
Now, he tries to approach every role with prayer. He looks for the redemptive thread, the place where Jesus might be present, even in broken characters. He once played a heroin addict on a TV drama and found grace in that role by imagining the man fighting for a second chance. Others might question why someone who plays Jesus would accept that part, but Roumie sees it differently.
On every possible conceivable level, until God got me to surrender my will. And that day, He turned my life around. And 6 months later, I got booked.
a typical element that people are dealing with in a film or a TV show, unless it's very specific to the show's storyline. I think the fact that I've surrendered any notion of, what kind of control I have over my career, and I just say, Lord, you tell me where you want me to go, and if somebody wants to.
If Jesus ministers to the broken, why wouldn't an actor show his love in those spaces too? While the answer might seem to come about simply, wait till we get to the latter part of this video, where Jonathan talks about the biggest challenge he's facing in Hollywood.
Personally speaking, I'm your host, Monsignor Jim Lasanti, and actor Jonathan Roumie joins me now. Jonathan currently stars in the popular television series The Chosen, playing the role of Jesus. The Chosen is the first multi-season series about the life of Jesus and is the highest crowd-funded media project of all time, with more than 400 million views. When episodes 1 and 2 of season 3 were released in theaters recently, there was such a demand for tickets that the ticketing website crashed. The event was number 3 at the box office that week. The series about the life of Jesus and his disciples took the faith-based industry by storm in 2017, beginning.
Unlike many others in the industry, Jonathan Roumie's rise to global fame came with both a blessing and a burden. His portrayal is beloved by millions, but off-screen, he's still an actor living in a world where faith isn't always welcome, and in some cases, not even tolerated.
Short by asking me how many chapters of The Chosen I'd seen. I'd seen none. And then his people from all over the world emailed me to say, watch the program. So I want to put right up front that I haven't seen Jesus Revolution yet, but I intend to. So I don't want to hear from anybody else. I'm going to see the movie. And Jonathan, let me start with this wonderful character of Lonnie Frisbee. I'm big into family of origin and how it impacts on us. Did he come from a place where there was anything spiritual, religious, or was this a late blooming development in this wonderful man?
Thanks for having me, Monsignor. So yeah, Lonnie had an influence.
In one of his most no-holds-barred interviews, Roumie acknowledged the weight of being publicly associated with Jesus. He spoke about how success has shifted his daily life, even the way he goes to church. What used to be a private, sacred space now draws people hoping for a moment of connection, a prayer, or even a miracle. It's not fame he chases, it's responsibility he carries.
Until the latter part of his teenage years, middle to late teenage years, where God really put his anointing on him and began to give him visions and show him that he was going to bring thousands of his generation of hippies to Christ. And that's exactly what he did once he connected. Even before he connected with Pastor Chuck Smith, who he meets in the film, who was the head of Calvary Chapel at the time, which was a church that was kind of, dying in a way. And Lonnie had started ministering to people. And once he connected with Chuck.
But behind the smiles and grace, there's a quiet cost. Roumie shared how his decision to speak at the March for Life wasn't easy. He knew it could be seen as controversial. In Hollywood, where being pro-life can be a career-ending move, he wrestled with fear. He even spoke to well-known actors who warned him about backlash they'd receive for standing up for life.
Now, and I know the Jesus Revolution took place about 50 years ago, and I'm wondering, in light of 50 years of a relativistic morality, far fewer people go into institutional religion, people talking about being spiritual but not religious, could something like this, where a guy of great charisma like Lonnie, and then someone like the pastor getting together with his intellectual understanding of the Bible, could people come together now and make a movement like the one we discover in Jesus Revolution?
I think we're seeing it now, Monsignor. If you look at what's happening at Asbury University in Kentucky, and then these tangent.
At one point, he considered dialing back his message, keeping it vague. But the closer the day came, the clearer God's call became. He couldn't stay silent, and when he finally surrendered, the words poured out. That speech would resonate with thousands, especially the younger generation.
Country, there are movements of revival all over the place, and I think it's like these little pockets of fires are just starting to light up, and I think it's only a matter of time before we're in a a full-scale cultural revival, spiritually led, of course, by the Holy Spirit, and seeing essentially a repeat of what had happened 50 years ago.
For our listeners and watchers, Jonathan Roumie hails from beautiful Long Island, where I have a parish. I mention that because another great actor from Long Island is a woman named Margaret Colin. And maybe this speaks to your point about
That's the difference with Roumie. He's not just an actor who happens to be Christian. He's a Christian who happens to act. And while that path may cost him roles in Hollywood, he's fine with that. Because for him, the goal isn't the next gig. It's staying in step with the God who called him. And so far, that surrender has opened doors no agent ever could. But that's never been his way. While many actors carefully shape their image to fit Hollywood's mold, Roumie has chosen to remain authentic, even if it means facing closed doors.
So I had committed. I couldn't think of a single thing to write. I had ideas and topics, and every time I sat down to write, nothing would happen. And I was starting to get a little panicked, especially when all of a sudden now it kept getting announced, and then I saw other people tweeting it, and like people in politicians were starting to talk about it and then mention my name, and I'm like, uh-oh, what have I done? And then I literally started to panic, and then so I basically got on my knees again, and I just said,
the tension is real. In a business driven by image and marketability, his deep association with Jesus could easily lead to typecasting or cautious casting directors. Still, he doesn't seem bothered. Roumie has surrendered his career to God's direction, believing that every open or closed door is part of a larger plan. For him, faith isn't something to be hidden to get ahead. It's the very thing guiding every step.
Cast me in something beyond Jesus when The Chosen is done, great. If not, great. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, it does. I would love to work, of course, but I trust God, and everything He does, He's going to show me where He wants me to be, and the roles He wants me to play, and hopefully there'll be some interesting stuff outside of that kind of box, and yeah. But I'll, whatever He does, whatever He wants for me, that's good enough for me.
To Roumie, faith in film isn't about running from gritty characters. It's about bringing light into dark places, carefully, prayerfully, and without compromising your soul. It's not always easy, and it doesn't always come with applause. But when your goal is to honor Christ, not just book the next gig, that changes everything. In an industry full of pressure, Roumie's message is simple. Don't just act for the screen, act for eternity.
Opportunity to meet Pope Francis, and then producers from The Chosen saying, hey, we want to send a film crew with you and capture this. Oh, and by the way, like, we feel like this could be a jumping off point to a global conversation with so many other spiritual leaders, thinkers, artists, musicians around the world, and an opportunity for people to get to see just what it is you go through in playing the character of Jesus. And I thought, I've never seen anything like that before. That could be really cool. And I think it could end up inspiring some people, because we would be talking a lot about the themes of surrender, because that's largely my...
Jonathan Roumie never set out to become the face people saw when they prayed. But since stepping into the sandals of Jesus in The Chosen, that's exactly what's happened. And it's changed his life in ways few could understand.
Of what it meant to actually achieve a modicum of success at this stage in my life.
Hey, Jonathan, one thing that stuck out to me in this docuseries, you talk about how sometimes people have a hard time separating Jonathan from Jesus. And you say in one scene that people have told you that when they pray to Jesus, they see your eyes. And I thought, that's a violation of the second commandment, right? Like that's a little disturbing. That must be uncomfortable for you to hear as an actor. How do you deal with the discomfort when fans struggle to separate you from Jesus?
Well, I don't think it's...
Roumie shared a striking moment from the docuseries where fans told him they see his eyes when they pray to Christ. For him, this wasn't flattering. It was troubling. He recognized the spiritual risk, people blurring the line between the man and the Messiah. His answer? Humble clarity. I'm not Jesus. I'm Jonathan. That's why he agreed to make the docuseries Jonathan and Jesus, to help viewers make that distinction and understand the burden behind the blessing.
And hopefully will give people a better understanding of what the challenges that I have tend to be, and so that if they do happen to meet me in person somewhere, because it's always possible, maybe they'll approach it differently. I mean, I've had pretty favorable encounters, but there's some people that haven't been, the kindest, and they just take certain things for granted. Like, you could be at a table and they just kind of come up and snap a selfie, like as you're in the middle of taking a bite of food, and you're like, well, would you do that to anybody, like anywhere? Like, but
even in public, Roumie carries the weight of the role. He recalls people snapping selfies while he's eating, well-meaning perhaps, but missing the boundary. It's not fame he fears. It's nothing but a misrepresentation. Fame fades, but the image of Christ should remain sacred.
A slightly better place. And I think talking about and having these conversations is a way for us to get there.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jonathan, you talk about the tremendous pressure that does come with playing Jesus Christ, the Son of God. How do you balance your fame with your deep spiritual focus on God, which I feel like really does come out in this docuseries?
I tend to do a lot of praying, Leah. I kind of like when Jesus, was overwhelmed, and at the end of a long day, he would go off by himself. And
when asked how he balances fame and faith, Roumie speaks simply: prayer, solitude, and the sacraments. Like Jesus retreating to the mountains, he often seeks quiet moments to recharge, going to daily mass or confession just to stay spiritually grounded.
And you do talk about surrendering to God, and we talked about that earlier in the interview. That's been so important in your life. Why is that such a central part of your life, and how do you continue to keep surrender in mind as The Chosen continues to blow up and become such a global phenomenon?
I think the same thing applies. When I'm in prayer, that's an opportunity for me to just humble myself before God and realize that every good thing comes from him, and everything that I have in my life.
The most powerful thread running through his story is surrender. Jonathan's career only began to thrive after he gave it all to God. Before The Chosen, he was broke and unsure of his future. But when he let go, God opened a path, one that came with honor, responsibility, and spiritual warfare. And he knows, if he ever starts believing the hype, he's in trouble.
And so, as long as I stay connected to my faith, that's how I stay surrendered. It's if I were to, believe any of the hype that anybody might write, or believe, or let any of the compliments go to my head, then I'm in dangerous territory. So, as long as I stay in prayer and connected to my faith, it allows me the vehicle to be able to stay surrendered to God.
Jonathan, thank you so much, and I'll see you this week on the steel carpet.
However, Jonathan has also acknowledged the potential for typecasting, a common concern for actors closely associated with iconic characters. In a recent interview, Roumie expressed his commitment to following where he believes God leads him, stating, "I made a commitment several years ago to go wherever God wanted to lead me." Despite the challenges, Roumie has continued to diversify his acting portfolio. He is set to star in an upcoming romantic comedy titled Solo Mio, alongside Kevin James, marking a departure from his role in The Chosen. While Jonathan is very much aware of the potential for typecasting, he remains open to varied roles that align with his values. Kindly share your thoughts and opinions concerning this video with us, and don't hesitate to like and subscribe for more.